Welcome to So I Was in This House. This episode is the tagline. This episode is So I Was in This House. And in this episode, it is So I Was in This Troubled House with Jane Sheeran.
Yeah.
All right. So a couple of announcements just to make real quick. So this episode is actually dedicated to my dog, my lost
Brucey.
my Bruce. Jane was nice enough to bring over. We lost our dog. He had lymphoma. It was pretty crazy. He probably hung around longer. It's hard to tell with
4 years.
Yeah, but he probably hung around with the lymphoma for a lot longer than he let on, because it was just like such a big like tumor. So it was pretty crazy. It was pretty sad. It was just an absolute like horrific situation. He was like really happy, like as a dog. He was a real pain in the ass, but he was a great dog, and it was really, really sad. So
did he turn into a big green machine like Bruce Banner?
Yeah, his name was Bruce Banner.
He's the Hulk.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah. We're standing for this episode, which I've never done I like standing. Standing is like my favorite.
Yeah.
I really enjoy standing. But this is the first standing episode that we've done. And also I got approved for TikTok Live, which is really kind of neat because I've never TikTok Live. So this is the first TikTok Live. So if you're on TikTok, thank you. This is the Sales Tales. So I Was in This House
we're
podcast.
Down here. Yeah.
This is an interesting episode because a lot of the times, I bring in, a lot of service industry people. I've brought in obviously the girls from the program on Netflix. They were on and they discussed some of their like what was going on there. And the sort of angle for me was that these parents were sold like a bill of goods, right? And they were sold this bill of goods, and their kids were carted off into these terrible behavioral modification programs. But I digress. So Jane and I met probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2. Yeah.
And so when I started doing this podcast, I didn't even know this about Jane, because I know Jane is like this, just like this amazing, loving mother and everything else. And she had a 20-year career, 15-year career in social work, and in what, Tulsa, and
it started in Kansas is where I started.
Right.
Yeah. And went to Tulsa, and then I had Tommy, and I had already had Bryson. So when we were in Tulsa, it was really hard to juggle working at a domestic violence shelter at night, and then making sure Bryson had someone with him. And then when I had Tommy, I just couldn't keep, I didn't have family close by. So
and it was hard probably to keep like work at work when you have a family to keep.
So we had Tommy, and 4 months later moved to Houston, and I had no one. So
right.
I wasn't going to leave my newborn with just people. And I love what I do as a job, but I love my kids too. So
right. And you had also helped out. Was it Hurricane Harvey?
Yes.
Was it Harvey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Houston was huge. Yeah, that was wow.
So to go back, so this whole thing. So then I started this podcast, which was, So I Was in This House. And she's like, oh my gosh, like I have been in so many houses in, for, domestic violence, children's shelters, all this stuff, helping out kids, helping out people. And she's like, I have all these stories. And she starts telling me these stories. And the premise of this podcast was obviously, hey, so I was in this house, like, like funny and weird and crazy people that you meet. But I mean, you're the epitome of like, okay, so I was, in this house.
The social workers that knock on the doors and yeah.
Yeah. And having gone through, early on in my oldest daughter's life, having gone through continuous, I mean, it was insane, the amount of, whatever counselors and court appointed this and court appointed that, and having to go through this nightmare because I had such a dysfunctional, ex. And it was a nightmare having gone through that. And also been adopted and having it gone through that, even though I heard those stories sort of secondhand, I experienced it in a way that was very personal to me. And so when I put out the announcements in the different groups and whatnot, it was interesting. It kind of got a mixed result on that. Like, on my personal page, on my own page, everybody was fine. I started posting this episode in other in other groups and whatnot, and it was kind of like, well, this isn't related to our group, but no, it is, because here's the thing. And if there anybody's listening, the reason why, listen, you're in houses, you're going to have awkward situations happen, you're going to have things that occur that you may, hey, look, you're going to have shed light on. And also, we deal with mental health problems all the time. I mean, things like drug addiction and alcoholism, and it's all really relative.
Stories of being in houses where you're like, oh my God, I thought I was going to die because of the behaviors of people that you're. So I mean, and you're not trained to deal with that, and I'm really not trained to deal with violence or.
You've got the masters in social work, so. Yeah.
But anytime you're entering someone's personal area, like, you don't know what the hell you're going to get. You don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't.
So Jane, tell everybody who you are and how it all started and how many, the whole deal.
Oh, man, I could say a million things or nothing. Okay.
Well, who are you? Yeah.
So I'm Jane Sheeran, and I am married to Patrick, and we have 4 boys. One is a grown and flown child that we miss so much, and he's in Kansas. And then we have our little ones that are Tommy, Jack, and Kellen. And they're 10. Hope I get this right. 10, 8, and 5. So I met Patrick in Kansas. We did long distance for a few years while I worked social work and took care of Bryson. And then he was promoted and moved to Tulsa. And it was like kind of we knew we wanted to spend our lives together, but we had a crossroads of, do I give up I was giving up my career, because I knew that once I got to Tulsa, I could not just leave Bryson to be on his own. So, it's basically, and with social work, you work your heart out or you don't. So, it was the decision of, do I leave my career and do what I knew was the right choice, or sacrifice happiness and all of that and not go. So I went, obviously, and then we got moved from Tulsa as soon as Tommy was born to Houston, because he was once again promoted. Because he kicks ass at his job. Like what am I supposed to say? What? You kick ass
when
at your job?
When somebody kicks ass at something, you just you just let him kick ass.
And and when you're a social worker, you can find people to help anywhere. But the hardest part is when you have children and no help, no family. It's hard to leave them with whoever. So especially knowing things I know about
talking about
random people.
I'm curious. So talking about children. So when you went from full-time social work into now having little kids, talk about that, because you probably saw, what's the craziest thing you saw that you then had to bring back home with you and then be a mom, and you just it just was wow, I have to be a mom now. I can't even believe what I just saw today.
Okay. Oh my gosh. When Tommy was born, I didn't do work. So that was, I wasn't in the social work field. I had actually stopped. But with Bryson, so many things that, he thought there was a time where I was at Victoria's Secret selling bras on the side on weekends when he was with his grandparents. And he thought I sold bras for a living, which really what I was doing was coming home after a day of just, crazy. I have crazy stories from way back when. When I moved to Topeka, Bryson was 3 or 4. I had not a ton of help there, but just the most amazing coworkers, amazing. You can't replace, they're the best. And we worked in if you were to think of the worst place in Topeka where you would never want to step out of your car, that's where we worked. That was the only building we could find to house long-term suspended students, and it wasn't just inner city students; it was all over, from all over the schools, and they didn't scare us. They weren't risky. They weren't violent to us. I mean, they were very kind kids. But the area we were in was having like shootings and deaths once a week. Like, I mean, and I
So
say
then
that
what? Like
lightly.
they bring you in and you like
So-
have to deal with the kids like trauma.
But
or what?
it's actually, it was like a community center, a church center, but they rented out space to us. So down in like where we were, there was a gym, a basement, a couple classrooms that we could set up for them to do credit recovery. And then we had a group room and a kitchen. That was helpful, so we could feed them. But up above, there was like a church, like sanctuary. I mean, this is a very rundown building, church sanctuary. And then they had like a come and go, like clothing shelter place, clothing and food. I mean, it was a church. Like they were like, so they would host, what do you call it? I mean, they would like open up their pantry and their clothing place to the public, to anyone that needed it. So we had all these students that we were supposed to make sure we're okay and protect. And then we didn't know who was coming in and out up there, like up in the front. The only place my boss's office could be was up in the front next to where all that stuff was. So at the time, like Chris and I, who was my other coworker, we would be down in like the big area room, and we shared, like he had a desk there, I had a desk up in the top hallway, which was, I mean, it was probably, it took her a while to get down to us. She had her office up there and had a door. And anyways, there was a guy that had been lurking around for a while. And a couple of students said they thought they had seen him, voyeurism type, doing things, standing outside of a vehicle, outside of a building, like pleasuring himself.
Wait, this was in a school?
This was outside of a church.
A church.
But because it was open to a community,
they could all come in and they were doing things. So this guy's creeping around. And we were all on height about, like, we were like, oh God. When the kids had left one day, and I'm pretty sure the church staff had left, Chris and I were working down in the office, and Mariah's up at the top, and all of a sudden she's like screaming and she's running down and we're like, what is going on? She's like, a penis. And a penis came through the crack of her door in her office. So that was like, we were like, wait, what? So he got in the hallway, and what does the mental illness, you can't explain why someone would get excited about sticking their penis through a crack of a door, but he did. Anyways, we had no idea who he was. He was just a community guy that would come in and out of the church. I mean, wait. But then what? He disappeared? Like what happened?
Oh no, we called the police. Yes, he did. I mean, as soon as
she saw it, and then what? She's
I wish she would have slammed the door.
Was she sitting at a desk or something?
Yes.
Okay, so then she gets up.
She's like, oh my God, and he runs. I think she screams. I don't know. Like she would tell a great story about this. She gets up though, she's scared. I mean,
she gets up, she goes towards the penis, or she goes away from the penis.
Oh, I'm gonna guess she did probably go towards, like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
I mean,
see, we don't know.
No
one knows.
But
no one has any idea which direction.
We knew exactly who the guy was because we were watching that fucker. We were watching him. So we watched it. We knew.
Did they catch him?
Oh yeah. And then we find out his whole rap sheet. Like, this is a thing. He publicly would go places. And,
oh my gosh, dude, I don't even understand.
Teenage children in oh my gosh,
dude. So here's what's really crazy. Okay. So I used to, part of like my love for like podcasts actually comes from the OG podcast. Okay. The OG podcast, the podcast that everybody knows of, is called Serial. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was about this supposedly wrongly convicted guy. Anyway, I think he's out of jail now, but it was this whole thing. And it was about this story of Adnan Syed. And one of the things was they were looking for the murderer of this girl, Hae Min Lee, I think her name was. And they were looking for her. And they ended up, the guy who discovered the body okay, was like they immediately had him as like a suspect, okay? And it was really weird because he was a freaking flasher. Like
And a
he had
murderer?
been arrested. He was like a working stiff
So he
guy.
was like building up. Yeah.
He was like a
There's stuff,
he was
for
like a
sure.
working stiff guy, but for some reason he's there. He's taking a piss in the woods and he finds the body.
Oh my gosh.
And he calls it in, and immediately again they're asking about like they're think about this guy who apparently he didn't do the murder, but he finds this dead body, and then it turns out it's like, oh,
And
he's
a flasher?
he's kind of sus because he's a flasher. Like, what happens with people like psychologically where they become flashers? Like it is so weird to me.
It
Okay,
is so
there's
a lot of mental illness I understand. Like, I can't say I understand, but that I can empathize with. I don't understand just whipping it out.
Oh, okay. So there's this guy, okay, who everybody knows who he is. Okay, in my like industry, in my world,
Yeah.
he's been completely canceled. I mean,
Mhm.
well, so what happened was he was actually sending women like it would start out like, but it would start out being like, you know, really innocent or whatever, and then or maybe not innocent,
but not
like
asked for.
no, not asked for, but like I don't understand why people would send a picture of themselves, even if it's like partially nude or maybe nude or whatever, but like unprovoked. Like
Yeah.
it's one thing if you're in a relationship or like you're dating someone or whatever, and you're like, oh, send me a picture.
I
And
think like for that,
but why?
that's like one for
But
that.
what is
They're like
it?
one person might take that up, but a guy that just stands outside of a brick building and pleasures himself and then sticks his penis through a door of a random woman's office, like that's weird.
But
Not
to
that
what-
sending random dick pics is not weird. That's also weird.
But to
I'm just
what
saying.
end? This is what I don't understand. Like, I can't get my head wrapped around why anybody would like. Why is it excitement? Do people get excited? Is that it?
It's a high. It's probably just like you know, just like murder, just like serial cheaters. I mean, they're not doing it like they could sleep with the ugliest girl. Like they're not doing it because
It's
just a high.
they're messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have other people that you've like in the social work? Have you had like people that had like these weird quirks or problems? Like,
like, okay, well, just from the same program. I mean, they're with kids, it's hard to
oh, you mostly dealt with kids.
I'm trying, yes. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Okay.
but
okay.
no. But we did. I mean, I learned a lot at that program. There's so many things, and we got kids from like there's 4 or 5 different districts in Topeka, and they
What was like the most prevalent problem? Like, what would you find that would be
in that program or overall?
No, in in your career. Like, what's the most prevalent?
Gosh, in my career,
Yeah.
sexual abuse.
Oh my gosh. And then
Oh well, yeah, you like so much.
and
Absolutely.
but what about in that school district? Like, what was
that wasn't a district, so it was a community program. It was funded, but the schools would each, so let's say 5 schools, would each buy like oh, we might have 10 kids kicked out this year,
right?
Or they could send truant kids, they could send long-term suspended kids, they could send kids that just behaviorally could not make it, and we did even help with we help with IEPs, but a lot of it was kids that didn't have IEPs, but they also just didn't want to go to school. But that situation.
And how old were the kids?
Anywhere from middle to high school.
Okay, so these weren't little kids; these were middle schoolers.
No, I worked with little kids later, like
okay.
Yes, yeah.
And so it was almost always a family member, I imagine, that was involved with the abuse.
The sexual abuse I didn't get until I was started working with pre-K through 12th grade in a rural area.
I think I'd rather not. Not that I don't feel like it's important to talk about, but like it's such a broad thing. Such a terrible topic to even.
But
think
it's also just something that I don't think people are aware of
how prevalent it is.
Yeah.
Well, go to the Watchdog websites. You know what I'm talking about? Those Watchdog websites. And then you look at the different neighborhoods and you can see, I had an employee and he showed it. He's like, hey, this is your county where you live, or this is the area you live.
Yeah.
And the freaking map is like red.
And that's only the reported ones.
Dude, it's crazy. And those are the ones that they actually serve time.
That's the ones that are, and let me tell you, the ones that were not reported or served time are way higher.
Yeah, but some of them are also like because they register everything. So like if it's like even
right.
if
So
even
you
nothing
peed,
happened.
you peed outside a bar.
Yeah, well, I don't know
You
if the
could some they use
exposure, really?
It depends on how much they hate you.
Oh gosh,
Like a police officer could
peeing
give
out,
you
peeing outside a
you
bar.
may be a registered sex offender if you're a real asshole. They'll be like, oh well, you whipped out your penis, so guess what? Now you're a sex offender for life.
Oh my god.
It depends. Like just don't be an asshole to cops, and maybe then
Yeah.
like you'll be okay. But I will say, and like if we're transferring, I will say, I was raised in a very rural area, and my life was good. I mean, like we didn't have it perfect, but I had no idea what was happening to probably people I went to school with every day. And when I moved back closer to my hometown, to be closer to family for Bryson. And well, I mean, everyone. I moved closer. I had a lot of my own family and friends. So when I moved from Topeka there, I was probably meeting with 30 to 50 kids a week. And if I even boys, I would tell you 1 out of every 3 to 4 kids I talked to brought up somebody that sexually abused them or assaulted them.
And
they had told people and they were called liars, or they were too scared to tell people because they had seen like a sibling tell someone. And when I say sexual abuse, it could be a sibling doing it, an uncle, a neighbor, or like a church program. I mean, it was so
prevalent,
so prevalent, and there was no training in the area for people to know how to help these kids. So there was a huge thing that I went to the police and the DA and the sheriff's office, and I was like this isn't okay. These kids need help, and they're like we need training, we need help. And the DA had already said like he had been trained in sexual abuse forensic interviewing. So that's how I got trained in sexual abuse forensic interviewing. I'm so grateful for that.
So
training.
what you could
so I can now
like flush it out, like or okay.
Well, so the problem was these sexually abused children when I was in Topeka, there was in the same program I was working with, it was called the Family Resource Center. So it was supposed to be a one-stop shop. So if you were sexually abused in Topeka, you would go to a place called the Child Advocacy Center. And that was also in the Family Resource Center, which is also where our program was through, the long-term suspended program. So I had worked with, after being in a small town, I had gone to Topeka. I had met people at the Child Advocacy Center. They were doing amazing work. And then I go back to, I felt like the Twilight Zone, because then I'm talking to these girls and a few boys, and they're telling me if they did report it, they were interviewed like 4 times. They were called liars. Like one girl got actually pretty much put in the cop car and arrested. In her mind, I mean, she was like she had a learning disability. In her mind, she was arrested, but like she was put in a cop car and drove to the station. It was like the Twilight Zone. So because I had the experience in Topeka, I had called the sheriff's department. I called the district attorney, and I was like so concerned about what was going on. And the district attorney had already gone through forensic interviewing training, and he said, yes, we need a team. So a team was created with someone from the sheriff's department, someone from the child, the family services that take
CPS,
children from
whatever,
home. CPS. And then they keep changing like the acronyms. And then myself and I think we had like a nurse practitioner with us. And we went to this week-long forensic forensic training, which is, if you think of forensic science in a court of law, they're like looked at as professionals, right? So I was a school social worker, but I was also trained to go to court and stand up for kids that had been sexually abused. I literally I had a professional. It wasn't like, I told me that they're like, right, I was you were
like the expert witness. Yes. Like you went in. Yeah. So, and so in general, like, you asked me a question before, and this is tough. So I want to pivot for a second here, because like the abuse part is like
Yeah.
I can't get my head wrapped around it. But I want to talk about like just mental illness in general.
Yeah.
So like, were a lot of the kids that you dealt with, or a lot of the people you dealt with, did they have like, were they mentally ill kids, or?
I personally have a big problem about diagnosing little kids with mental illness unless it's something I don't like. I'll just say their parents. 98% of the kids that I worked with, or I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't say 98, maybe 90. They had a mental illness.
And were they like what is it called? Like Munchausen, where they put that
some, yes.
Yeah.
Some were.
Have you ever seen that? Shit's crazy.
Yes.
Munchausen by proxy.
Oh, God.
For those of you that don't know what Munchausen by proxy is.
That's such a good point, because it does happen psychologically. And there's not even a way to like justice that. Like there's no way to even prosecute that. I don't think.
So this is one that, and this is actually like, I was on a sales call, and I was in a good neighborhood. I went in, it was a father. He was a single father. And, but the grandfather kind of was there or living there or whatever it was. And he has a daughter there, and we just start talking, and I don't remember where I was in life at that point in time, but he starts telling me this story about how his ex-wife, who he got full legal custody of his daughter, and I got full legal custody of my daughter.
Right.
Okay. It took me years.
Amazing daughter, by the way.
It took me years. It took me years to do this.
God.
I was in and out of courts. I was trying to fight for her. I didn't have the kind of resources and money at the time and all this kind of stuff. But long story short, the mother had Munchausen by proxy and was basically sending her daughter to doctor after doctor after doctor, and she didn't like the answer, she'd go to another doctor.
Was she poisoning?
And she was giving her medicine when she wasn't even supposed to get medicine. It was absolutely bonkers. But he eventually was able to prove in a court of law, and he spent like
heartbreaking. How much helplessness do you have
tens of thousands of dollars on an attorney to try to get his own daughter and prove that this woman was mentally ill. Now, in order for you to do that, in order for you to actually have like Munchausen by proxy, like that in and of itself is a mental illness. I actually think.
Are you a sociopath? Maybe I'm not. I mean, honestly,
I don't know if it's sociopathological, but
there's what is it?
I actually think that later, somebody very close to me that I know actually had Munchausen, and I approached her about it at the very late part in her life, and I even said it, and I'm like, and it was on herself though. Yeah, it wasn't on anybody else.
Okay. Like
she wasn't saying that. Oh, I'm not. No, on herself. Like and she go to different doctors and get different diagnoses and everything else.
There's another name. I feel like I should be a professional and know this.
It's Munchausen.
It's Munchausen. Not on yourself.
It's not. What's it called?
Someone help us out.
It's not. Yeah, somebody chime in the chat.
It is not TikTok? Munchausen if it's on yourself. I don't know. I feel suicidal.
No. What's it called? No, what's it called when you're what's it called when a hypochondriac? But that's not.
Yes, but that's not
different.
What it was.
A hypochondriac, you always have something wrong with you.
Self-destructive.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is, I think it's just Munchausen, because Munchausen by proxy is doing it on your child.
Well, there's a new DSM-5, and I'm like not a professional in that, so there could be a new diagnosis for that.
So from that note, though, like I dealt with, and this is very personal to me, and it's very one of the bonds that Jane and I have spoke about on many occasions, and in our cups, right? We've lamented about this. We both have siblings that have suffered from like severe bouts of depression and every other type of problem that you could possibly think of. Okay. And having had a sister that virtually our entire life. I mean, just having to deal with an irrational person and having to sort of tap dance, and like having this person be the smartest, like she has like 175 credits in college.
My brother was the smartest guy I've ever met in my life.
And and like that, like being so smart, and then also being like just so cursed basically with not being able to almost like demons, like having like demons that you can't.
Like people say they have demons, but then there's and I believe everyone has demons, but some like are tormentuous, like they really hurt They hurt people like physically and but like they don't know how to even explain it to anyone how bad it is.
Well, here's the problem too, is that drugs will exacerbate the
Which
issue.
comes first, the drugs or it just makes it worse. It's a cycle of depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, all these different things. And then you self-medicate and then it just cycles. And it's just like a circle. It's a circle.
Yeah.
Circle.
You and I have to stop banging on the table.
Sorry. Is it making loud noises?
Yeah, you can hear it in the mic. Anyway. So anyway, that was the bond. So my sister has battled, endlessly, and you try to help them, and unfortunately, what would you say to somebody who was trying to help? Like you knew somebody, they had mental illness or whatever. What would you say to help them, to say this is probably the best course of action?
I mean, gosh, it's such a broad. I mean, I have mental, like I have always struggled with depression my life. Like it, so there's the thing where it's like, you can say you have depression and it's genetic, and then there's depression that's not genetic. Like there's depression that's so deep that that it's not like it's not genetically explainable. And that's, I think for me, if I were to be in front of someone with a severe mental illness, I feel like all mental illness can be whatever it is for that person, but because that's the thing, we all experience it differently, and we all deal with it and cope with it differently. So I would not have anything. I would listen. I don't have anything to. I don't know what I would say.
Yeah, isn't that
There's nothing?
It's like the the unanswerable question. Like,
right.
And you probably get different schools of like scientific thought.
I mean, I can't say like, well, don't self-medicate, because what if that's keeping them from killing themselves or from doing whatever? Or what if that is contributing? But we don't know. We all deal with things just so differently. Like, I don't know.
Let me ask you this. You made a lot of house visits, right?
Yes.
What was like the weirdest thing that ever happened inside of a house? And then you have to start the story, because of the way that this podcast works. You have to start the story with, so I was in this house.
But do you call it a house? Okay.
Yeah. So I was in this house.
I'm going to go back to my very first case of all time. And I was maybe 21. Maybe 22.
Little Jane.
Little Jane, Jane. Super naive, small town Jane in Topeka. So here we are. I'm doing a case
in Topeka, Kansas.
In Topeka.
Topeka,
Kansas. Is not ghetto. Like, or not redneck. Topeka's scary. Like Topeka, one block, you're fine and like you're safe. And the next block, people get shot up every day. Like you don't, and I didn't know. I don't know this stuff. I mean, I was like rural.
Middle America. Now a lot of meth, right? There's a lot of meth up there in Middle America.
Gangs. I mean, there's gangs. The gang awareness training.
Topeka gang, the hard gangs.
All right, so they really are.
I believe it.
I'm saying, like, that's what most of the shootings were. And I did gang awareness trainings, and I was blown away.
Gang awareness training. I didn't even know that was like a thing, but that's cool. You're
going to do any work in Topeka, Kansas, or any big city, you need to go, especially home visits or living in or working in a community center where people put their penises through the door. You need gang training awareness. You need to have the police tell you which gangs are where.
Yeah.
And what's going on. Like, you absolutely, for your own life, you should do that.
Huh. Okay. So you're little Jane, you're 21 years old. You just started social working.
You go to this house. Describe
this house.
I get kind of hired by this family resource center, not hired, but like, that's where I started before I got into the teenage places. So I first started with casework.
Okay.
I get this case file and I read it, and it's a mom that's 8.5 months pregnant, or 9. I mean, I guess really pregnancy is like 10 months, but so really like going to give birth like tomorrow or next week. I don't know, soon. Probably should have yesterday. Whatever. But she lives in a hotel, and my job is to help her find housing before a baby comes. Like, that's my job. Okay. She came to the resource center to find help.
Okay.
To get a house.
Okay.
She's gonna have a baby in a week.
Okay.
So I know nothing, Jon Snow, about Topeka. Game of Thrones fans, you would know what I'm saying. But all I do find out is that the red Roof Inn is a place where homeless people live if they're kicked out of the shelter in Topeka. And it's that's where like
it's a motel, not a hotel.
and it's
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
You
like,
made it sound like it was a Hilton. It's a Red Roof
it's
Inn.
crazy. Like the way
Yeah.
you pay is like maybe if you take out the trash, but they're getting charged like $600.
And the government's paying for the
Some of it. They're
Okay.
definitely paying for their food.
right.
I don't know. This is
The government. The government.
This is my first home visit ever in my life.
All right, so you go.
So I go to the.
So you go to the
freaking
home,
hotel.
which is
no,
the-
I go to the hotel.
which is the home.
Motel.
Can you stop banging on the
Sorry, I'm
table,
sorry.
Jane? You're banging on the table. Everybody's
I'm
hearing it.
excited. Are they saying anything about it?
No.
Sorry.
So far, we have some on TikTok, but it's so far away. It's like,
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so I go.
Hi, TikTok. First TikTok live, by the way, which is very exciting for me.
I will stop banging. on
Okay.
things.
Anyway, go
I
ahead.
go to the hotel.
I don't think they can hear your banging.
They give. Oh, good. I hope not. Someone
Okay.
say if they can.
All right, you go to the hotel.
Go to the hotel.
So I was in this
find
hotel.
the room. So I was in this house hotel.
So I was in this house hotel.
That like $600 a week,
Right.
maybe a week. I don't know.
Right.
I knock on the door. And I'm like, hey, I'm Jane. I'm the social worker, like assigned to your case. Like you met with someone and then they referred me. And so she lets me in and I have to do this assessment. Like what I don't know if people know what an assessment is, but like I'm asking very detailed, like personal questions about addiction, if she's using now, where has she lived, has she ever been sexually abused, physically. I mean, it's a very in-depth.
All right, so you're doing an intake of what's going on.
But there's 3 other like homeless people in the room.
Okay, she's living with 3 homeless people. So she
and like maybe they have kids. I can't remember. There's a microwave. I don't think there was a refrigerator.
Okay. So
It was so dark.
First visit you ever
So
did.
scary.
10 months pregnant. 3 homeless people.
God.
And what and that's it? Or
No, well,
okay,
yeah.
what happens?
So we make a plan. I mean, I'm gotta help. I gotta find her a house.
Yeah.
We I mean, I feel like there's only so much I can do there. There's like a felony involved.
Nobody wants her living in their house.
Right.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's her felony. I don't know. I think there's a husband. I can't remember if there's a boyfriend. Anyway, so I'm asking, I know nothing about Topeka. Like, again, I'm asking people, where do I find a house for this lady to rent? Like, what do I do? She's pretty young too and has no support, no family. They tell me about these slumlords, but like the only slumlords that will take the situation that I have going on is like the worst slumlords. So this is just mind blowing. So I get her in the car, like, let's go find these. I make appointments with landlords, slumlords in Topeka. I'm sure if anyone in Topeka is listening, I'm sure they can name the people that I'm talking about, the slumlords. And we go to a house where he like lets us in and the carpet is just like, matted with like shit and dog pee and like and he's like, well, I mean, we might replace the carpet. And I'm like, what? Like, what? That's so gross.
Wow.
And it's just run down. You can tell like leaks. It was so bad. And what am I supposed to tell her? Like,
so it's the Red Roof Inn or this house.
Yeah, and she can't afford it. She can't pay for it. Like it was HUD housing or like,
yeah,
so the state was going to help her, but I don't even know. I don't know. Like,
so she didn't end up moving into that house.
No,
okay.
No. And then I don't know if she obviously would have had to make the move to cut the contact. Like I had given her, we had went to there's a place in Topeka where you can go and talk to like a resource lady that gives you everything you need to know about which daycares provide, like free daycare for people that are, that are on like WIC or whatever you call it.
Right.
So we did that and we went there and I gave her all the information and like, that's really, I mean, for case management, you refer, you give her, and then if she wants to call me back.
And that was your first experience in social work.
Oh,
hey, so
yes.
Jane, you brought like a whole notebook. So what do you got?
God.
What do you got over there? Anything fun? Any good stories?
Well, I already told you the penis.
Yeah, the penis story. That was the fun one.
All right.
For those of you that are listening live, you go back and listen to the penis story. That was crazy.
All right. So, it's really hard. When I was in a small town, I worked with like basically pre-K through 12th grade crisis.
Okay.
And also like there was not just the pre-K, but there was like the alternative school. So it was a lot of things. Some kids I would see regularly. Most kids I would see just like, because I only had time to see them when I needed to get them through a crisis. I had moved my office over to the high school, and this assistant principal knocks on my door, and he's like a ghost, like just like, and it takes a lot for him to be speechless, right?
Okay.
He's completely white, and he says, "I don't know." He was like close to retirement. He's like, "I don't know what to do," which for him to say that to anyone was like, wow. Okay. He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he was like, so-and-so, like, he just told me he's pregnant.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So a student, and there's a few things that could have happened. Okay. Cause he was
hold on, just back up for a second.
Yeah.
So who told him that he was pregnant?
A student that had gotten in trouble.
Yeah. But what was this? The student was. So he, as the assistant principal, his job was to take care of the discipline. Mostly. Right. But was there a pregnant student? So hold on.
He was he was for sure a he.
Oh, okay. This was not not
a transgender, like for sure.
It doesn't matter if the transgender or not. They can't get pregnant. It's impossible.
Right.
So, okay. So a boy.
Yes.
How old is he?
Oh, 15.
So the boy comes
16.
to him and says that he's pregnant.
Yes.
Okay.
The assistant principal handled the discipline in my mind, and I have to approach it the same as I would anywhere. Like, I have to take him seriously, right? Okay, but in my mind, I'm like, well, so first I tell him like, well, what do you get in trouble for? Is he trying to get out of trouble? But it doesn't matter. That's not how I would approach it with him. Like, I would never be like, are you trying to get out of trouble? Like, I'm not. I'm gonna literally talk to him about it and like meet him where he is, because that's what social work is trained to do. You meet the person, where they are. I just banged.
It's okay.
So I'm like, just send him over. But he's so beside the fact that I saw this professional that didn't show emotions and didn't show his cards, and he was just like, this is white flagging it. Like, I cannot do this. Like, this is all you, like, you got to help me out. And it just was, it's funny to me.
Okay.
So he comes over.
Wait, so the boy.
Yes. So we were like side by side offices. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you were in the school.
Right. In the school.
Okay.
Yeah. Not in the house.
Yeah. You didn't make that clear.
School.
Okay.
Sorry.
So the boy comes over to you.
Yeah. So he sends him over to my office.
He says, Counselor. He says, Counselor Jane, I have some bad news.
Yeah. Miss Jane. Yeah.
I'm pregnant.
I'm pregnant. And so I was like, well, can you explain to me? I mean, that's the thing about social work. You can't react. You can't be like, what the fuck? No, you're not. Like, no.
Right. You should just ask him, like, how did that happen?
No. I was just like, can you explain to me exactly? That's what you like. What happened?
Yeah.
And do you know what it takes to get pregnant? And so, I mean, you meet, and he wasn't like low functioning. He didn't have a disability. I don't think he was high, because I can tell high. So there was two things. He was either mentally ill, or he was coming down from something. I don't know. The TV had told him he was pregnant. Like, it was like a TV. So it felt
the
a little.
The TV told him he was pregnant.
Yeah, it felt a little schizophrenia to me.
Whoa, yeah, that sucks.
But I'm not, and that doesn't make it like no. I honestly was like, I think he was trying to get a reaction from. To be honest, I don't think he was schizophrenic, because I never had.
Do you think that he was fucking with you guys?
Absolutely.
Oh, but he was like playing it off serious.
Oh yeah, and he was in trouble. That's why you don't go to the assistant
So
principal.
he was in trouble, and then he was like, "Oh, and by the way, I know I'm in trouble, but
the principal
surprise,
was like smart enough to know
I'm pregnant."
Right. The principal is smart enough to know, like, okay, like, I can't do this. Like, I'm gonna mess some shit up. Like,
this took away from real teenage pregnancies. This took away from because
I'm sure I dealt with all that too. Yeah. In that moment, like, that kid needed help no matter what it was. I mean,
oh wow.
Like, maybe he just needed to talk about crazy. I don't know. I really did not feel like there was a mental illness. But I wasn't screener. I was just a get him through the moment kind of person at the time. So, and he's so the sweetest kid, like so nice and just like
Interesting.
he wasn't causing a problem. He was just like, he was very matter of fact. Like I am pregnant. Like I am pregnant.
Let me ask you a question. I ask this on every single episode. And so for those of you that have listened to my podcast, you'll realize I ask one question. This is the only one that I repeat in every episode, which is, what is one one home visit for you that was so impactful that today you carry it with you wherever you go?
I actually met Patrick through his sister, Katie. She was a school nurse and at the elementary. And we had a little guy and he had chronic head lice. And a single mom, I think with the resources she had, maybe like she was doing the best she could do at the time. But I mean, addiction played a huge part. And we had to make numerous home visits. I made one with the principal. I made one with one or two with Patrick's sister. And one of the times we had went, like this mom was high as a kite, could not even see straight, and had little babies at home, like babies. I don't know if I can't remember if we were picking them up for school or like if it was more of a, we need to talk to you so that we can get this problem, which was a head lice, like figured out. And I fought so hard and did whatever I could to the state, to the police, to everywhere to try to help these kids that she was just an addict. She was sick and addicted. And this poor, there's like 4 or 5 kids and she was not there. Like her brain was not there. And I don't know. I gave the case file to police, to the DA.
What was it about that? Because you saw a lot of drug addiction. What was it specifically about this? Was it the kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not the kid. Like
no, I mean,
babies.
Was it the kid? Was it because you like the kid was a good kid and was going home to this?
Just a baby too. It was like when we knocked on the door, they had to like scream for her to come down. And when she did, she was completely high as shit. And these little baby girls are running around. And the student must have been at school at the time because he was not there. And we had tried calling, phones had been disconnected. All we have is her address. And I think this would have been the visit with the principal. And which it takes a lot for a principal to make a home visit. And he was an elementary school principal. That's the only time I think I took him with me to a home visit, which, I mean, that says a lot. To me, that says a lot.
Yeah.
And he was a great principal. It just says a lot. And the kids barely could talk. Like they were little. Yeah. When I say little, they weren't in school yet. And they're like trying to get her to come down, and she comes down and she's high as a kite. And she doesn't know. Like all we can do is call the police, and we can call like
what do the police do? Did they take the kids away?
At that time, I don't know if they even, I don't know. Can't remember because there was like a city and a sheriff situation. And all we can do is make a report. And then like, we're not normally informed about what happens. All I know is that the kids were not removed. I don't know if that case, I know that many times the CPS and the sheriff's office had been at their house, but I don't know if they did research or like what's the word? I don't know if they came that time.
Here's my observation, because having gone through something like this where I was in a personal situation where my daughter was removed from her mother's home.
Yeah.
And but here's the thing. This is like, I'll just say, this is like, upper middle class, to middle class to upper class,
Yeah.
like society where, you know, the
It's
police
different.
are,
That's
the police are really attentive to things. There's not a whole lot that
Right.
goes on. Neighbors are calling and reporting things. And this is like the sort of sad part about it is that like you were probably working in the hood.
Well, I mean, it was a rural area. So, I mean, we are like
Okay.
very, very limited, first of all, in resources. Second of all,
Yeah, but the resources of Child Protective Services exists in those areas. I mean, the
barely.
police
I'm going to say
exist in-
barely because they're so overworked. Like, literally, I would actually like, if someone offered me $2 million right now
Yeah.
to work for any state agency as a social worker, I wouldn't do it.
It's just terrible.
Because you're just being set up to either run your life or you're going to run someone else's life because you cannot help everyone. And you're like one worker in a million. That like they could take a person, they could have a kid in foster care that they say, Jane, and I have friends that had to do this, where they call the state worker, they say, Jane, we have a foster student, like, or a foster kid down in down in Southwest Kansas, and I'm in Northeast Kansas.
Yeah.
You may have to go all the way down there to the westernest part of Kansas, which is like, there's nothing there,
Right.
Colorado, and then basically pick them up and drive them to wherever they're going to get relocated. And like, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if you have kids. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to do this. And they get so much shit for not doing their job.
But like obviously you get highly trained on this kind of stuff. Like you're trained to have to deal with this. Like I could never do that. Like think about it. Like you have to compartmentalize in your head. Like you do. And I can't carry weight on me. I can't like, I have a hard time compartmentalizing in general. Like everything's kind of in there. And so, but I would imagine you guys, like, I mean, you go to school for years and in order to be,
I don't think that you learn it. I don't think you learn.
I don't think it's like practice in a game, right? Like you can't, there's no way you can, the game is
right. You have to have it and then you learn it. But no, for sure. Like I've learned from the best mentors, the best bosses, the best. I mean, I have been so lucky to have the people in my life.
Right, but I don't think it ever really settles in, right? Because it's like, there's no way you can see the kind of things that you see, right? And then be able to like compartmentalize it. So I say the same thing with ER doctors and all that kind of stuff. Like
makes you really sick.
If you're an ER doctor or you're like a trauma nurse or something like that, like God bless you, because there is no way in the world that I could ever, I mean, the things that you guys see and do, like, I don't even know. And then you go home. Same thing with like, if you're a cop or like a fireman in like a really bad like area where there's always stuff going on. Like, I think it takes a special type of person to do that. So my sister, believe it or not, my mentally ill sister, okay, who, look, I know this is a public sort of forum and it's out here and it's kind of the confessional for me and whatever, but she went to school. She has 1 million credits to do social work and went through, what was it? It's like 5,000 hours 2,000 hours you have to do of like intake. She went through all of it. She went through all of that training and then could not do it. Now, again, she's a different animal. She's a different situation, but she could not do it. So,
and I mean, I don't know if she's a non-trad student. Was she younger when she did all that? Or was she more like a non-traditional?
No, actually, she went through high school and pretty much uneventful. Like she's a little bit different and a little bit strange, but never like to a point where you were like, you know, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then like things got progressively worse, like really fast.
Like so, I mean, because that's the thing about social work and what I've seen just in my classes. And I mean, at Washburn, I basically had the same classes after your first year with every single student. Like we basically shared the same classes. We had the same professors. Oh, you had to verify. Yeah. So, but there was several that were like they had not worked through their own pain, and that's to me.
Who hadn't worked through their own pain?
Just those people that were trying to be social workers.
Oh yeah.
Like they're in the middle.
So they go into it because they go into it.
They have pain because we all have a history.
Because they want to make a difference. And here's the thing. They don't get paid.
They've been through it. Right. But that's not why you do it. And
yeah, but you got to figure who is going into social work.
Right.
Like probably people that have been through some fucked up shit.
Yeah, but if you are mental and you're trying to help people that need help, like
Right.
it's really can
It's like the
fuck up a
blind. It's like the
person.
blind leading the blind.
Like I've seen some crazy people like in our classes where I'm like, that person, I try not to be judgmental, but like the things they say where it like turns into a story about themselves, narcissism basically, where it's like it turns into a story always turns into about them. How are you going to help someone?
Oh, you're not even listening. You're just telling your own story.
Right.
Oh, that's crazy.
And there's so many.
What do you got?
So many.
What else you got?
Oh gosh.
What? Get this thing out here. You got all these stories. I want to hear them. You came on the damn podcast.
How long are we going to go?
You got, don't worry about it.
Because you do not want me to go through this.
No,
okay?
I want you to tell the good ones though.
Okay. Well, so I had, I was like in my 20s, and when I started working at the community service program, I mean, these were teenage boys, and I was like 22 or 3. I had just gone through like crazily a divorce at 22 or 23, and lost a ton of weight, and I would like looked really great, but these kids were like, there was a couple that would write things on like bathroom stalls, like just really inappropriate sexual things.
Where were they writing
at
things?
at the where I was working? I mean, I was their one counselor, their one
at a
social
school
worker. Yeah.
Okay, so at a school, and they were writing things. What were they writing?
Oh, like I would fuck Jane.
Oh, they were writing it about you.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Were they troubled students, or were these just like regular students?
Kicked out of school. Like,
yeah, they're getting kicked out.
My first job with teenagers, I was like 22 or 23, and these kids were they were the kids that were kicked out of school. Most of them were high schoolers. Most of them.
Okay.
Most of them were, I mean, they loved smoking weed. They loved drinking. They had no supervision. They loved to get responses from people. Like
and they wanted would do things like say, I want to I want to bloop you, Jane.
Yeah. So we find it. And there's only, I mean, when I say it was such a small program, and it was so grant funded. Like United Way helped us. There was a couple other grants we would write. And it was so, I don't know. So we only had like a teacher, maybe 2, if we could get one to stay the whole time. Because it was rough. It was rough place. It was rough there. And then we had me as the social worker counselor. And then we had my buddy, like great friend, Chris, that was the, like did a lot of like the helping with the teachers and the helped with case management, things like that. And then Mariah, who like had this vision, which, wow, what a vision. And we created this program. Like she created it, and I helped her develop the assessment, all these things. But I was so young dealing with all that. I never wanted to work. I didn't think I wanted to work with teens. And this is where I really learned a lot about what I was good at. When we find out like there's someone writing things, and we had a pretty good idea of who it might have been. And I had a group session with them every day, like all of the kids. So we're talking like maybe 15 kids total.
Okay.
And so I mean, I'm not gonna, I just don't beat around the bush. And so I'm like, let's get in our group session. Like, let's do it. Let's call them out. Like,
and you were like, all right, who wants to bone me?
Who's writing? I'm gonna F Jane.
Who wants to bone me? And did somebody raise their hand?
Oh, you could see it all over his face. All over his face.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we already knew, but
you knew who it was.
I mean, we had a really good idea, but then when we saw, and of course everyone's laughing, and then
so did you bone him?
Ew. No, but
these days you see like all these teachers, these female teachers that are having
don't even get me started.
They're having affairs with like these students. Yes. It's crazy. I'm like, what the heck?
It's so gross. Like, I mean, sorry, can you not get like a random piece of shit at a bar?
Do you think that, well, there's something going on there.
No, for sure mental. I don't know if you blame it mental illness, but that's just messed up.
But do you think that this stuff, here's my opinion. I won't even ask you. I'll just say it. I think this stuff has always been going on.
Yeah.
I think it's been going on. However, with social media and with how everything, like there's a camera everywhere and everything else, I think that it's just, you see it more now, and you can see it and you can share it, and the whole world's at your fingertips. And I was actually talking to Noah. I was talking to my son before, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, we were just talking, we were just having a candid conversation, and it was probably like inappropriate for me to have this conversation with my 14-year-old son. But you know what? No, here's the deal.
There's nothing inappropriate when you're like just trying to help out your son. Like
but whatever. The whole point was, we were talking about like, dude, they have to live in a world right now that
It's unreal.
there's a fucking dude. Somebody could walk in, okay, to like they could be all hanging out, a bunch of kids in the room, and they're I don't know, they're doing something, they're being stupid,
Yeah.
they're smoking weed, whatever it is. And in their pocket, some kid walks in with like a camera, like a
Right.
phone,
And the video
and it's recording, and they're like recording this
I would have got
conversation.
canceled a long time ago.
No, and it's I think that it adds a lot of stress to like
It
our
does.
kids
I mean,
in
think
general.
about
Like
the Hawk Tuah girl. I mean,
well, she's
like-
now crazy famous.
exactly. But
She
like,
hawked to it.
but you're literally, did she in that moment? I swear to you, she did not know that was going to turn into what it did. Obviously,
No,
But
but you know what? It's probably, here's the deal. That was the positive side of it, because now she's doing interviews. She's super
Right.
famous. She can monetize it. Like, I mean,
and was it really that bad?
it wasn't. It was actually it was kind of funny. But here's the double-edged sword of that. Here's the double-edged sword of that. The whole thing came out about, oh well, her dad is actually a pastor. Her dad's not a
It's
pastor.
not. No, I just
Yeah,
just saw the interview from
But
Zach
people
Bryan's
make shit
girlfriend.
up. You don't even freaking know. You have no idea.
And then somehow it turns into crazy. But here's the thing also. I feel like, especially with teachers, social workers, definitely police, like the training, the lack of training that we have. So, I mean, I had great mentors. I had people that would help me in a situation where if I had kids writing, I will F Jane on the stalls. I had people to talk through it. And I mean, of course you have to be mental to be like flattered about that. And there are people that would be, but I was like, you guys, I am your social worker. I'm your counselor. I mean, you have to have training to set those boundaries with teenagers, because teenagers, it wasn't even about that. And they crossed so many boundaries. That was just one tiny one. Yeah, I mean, and I was trained and I had people to help me say, like, this isn't okay. And if this, like now you're going to be supervised outside of the bat, like someone's going to be standing, making sure no one has markers when they go, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, it was a control thing. If they wanted to write whatever, they would have still. But just setting that down and just being like, listen, like, I care about you guys as like humans, and I want you to be okay, and I want to help you. And I feel like you owe me that respect too. Like, we need to respect each other. That's not respect. Like, that's not cool. Not cool. And then so it was fine. But he was so embarrassed. He was actually really embarrassed.
Do you have any like really awkward, funny moments from like being in counseling and social work?
The pregnancy one was like, whoop, that was crazy.
I'd be really interested to hear
yes,
if you had a moment where you were like, that's funny.
God, I don't know about funny. But I had oh my gosh, I had a student that I just worked a lot with. I loved her so much and still do. She's amazing. And she had a lot of pain. She had a lot of trauma from her childhood, sexual abuse, lots of things. But she like one day sat down with me and she was like, I gotta tell you what happened, like on this trip, like blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm gonna say right now, like, if you tell me anything reportable, like I have to report it. And it was like a church trip. And so she's like, keeps talking about it. And she tells me things happen and this kid in the back seat. Well, I mean, she was like middle school. This kid was high school. I have to report it. I have to call the police. I have to call her parent.
Okay.
I understood like she was 14 or something and he was like 17 or 18. But it doesn't matter. Like, it was in the back of a church thing. And I don't think she actually really wanted it to happen, honestly, like the way, but I told her, like, don't tell me, just don't tell me if it's that, like, I have to, what I have to do. And then she did.
So you have to report, they're in high school together, right?
Yeah.
So
but it was, no. She was in middle. She was like 13.
Oh, okay. And he was in high school.
Yeah.
So you have to report it to who?
To the CPS and the police.
Okay. So you report it. Go ahead.
So I call the police, and actually at that point I pretty much was like skipping over the child protection services because not because I think they're terrible, but because they could not respond. If I had a kid with a bruise on their face, like 9 times out of 10, they could not be there before the kid went home. And so I would have to send a kid with bruises home, and it happened before, and it was just horrible situations.
Wow.
So anyways, her dad shows up, Police show up. She gets called to the office, and she says, "Fuck you, Jane." I mean, just like
Who said that? Oh, the
the
girl.
student.
Oh, she just said,
Oh,
fuck you.
I fucking hate you. I mean, she's screaming at me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I told you. Like, I can't. I mean,
Wow.
and so she got interviewed. She was pissed. Like, she was so pissed about her dad being. I'm like, I love you. I just want you to be okay. Like,
Wow.
love in a non-boundary love. I know.
Were you at her house when she said this?
No, this was all in the middle of the office of the middle school.
Wow.
Where it worked. Yeah.
And so she walks in and just says, fuck you,
No,
Jane.
she before she even gets to the like there's a conference room before she even gets there, she's like, fuck you, Jane. She already knew. I'm like,
So did they call you by your first name?
yeah.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
I like
Counselor
my
Jane.
littles in the elementary would say Miss Jane, and oh my gosh, like just amazing kids. And I would do I would work with the little ones in groups and things. And I had a really great coworker that was a psychologist that worked for the special ed department, Lisa Pierce, and like the best psychologist I've ever met. So yeah.
Do you want to hear? But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell a little story, and we're gonna wrap up in a little bit here. But I want to tell a brief story. This is actually very interesting, very near and dear. So my original concept for what I wanted to do for a podcast was way too heavy, and I actually stopped putting the concept together because it was too hard for me. And so what happened was, so it's fine. So I was adopted. And when I was adopted, I was the social workers that gave me, I was a foster kid first.
Yeah.
So they gave me to my,
how old?
I was like 1 when I became a foster kid to my mom who raised me. Right.
Okay.
And my dad.
And then she adopted you. Like,
yeah,
okay,
she adopted me, but eventually, but so I was brought in as a foster kid. And I came from a family, like my biological family was pretty well to do. They were and it was really weird.
Was
like
it open adoption?
No. So it was a closed adoption. So I never even knew who she was till way later. And then I find out like weird things later. But anyway, long story short. So I there was 3 of us. Okay. 2 of us were adopted into the same home. So actually me and my sister are biological brother and sister, but we're adopted into the same family. My mom was given this.
Did you have any other siblings?
Yeah. So there's one other, I have a brother and he's in Florida, but I didn't know that. I never met him. I didn't know who he was. It was a closed adoption.
Older or younger?
He's 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
So anyway, this is something that like, okay, so on all the paperwork, there's all these like social workers like writing different things and they're writing out things. Yeah. And by the way, I have the documentation and it's in typewriter, right? So this is in 1980, 81, 82, yes. Right? So,
oh my gosh,
it's in typewriter. And so you see,
have that. How did you get that?
Well, I got the court documents later. And so, but you
would love to find
there's copies of it, but I have one copy. I think that's the original.
Was that hard to find?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. That's, I'm all about finding old documents.
It was really strange. But the thing was that the social workers told my mother that, not my biological mother, my adopted mother, my mom, right? They told her that I was in a foster family. That I was living with a foster family and it was a bad situation and they had to get me out of there.
They told your biological mother?
No.
Oh, no.
They told my mother, my mom.
Okay.
When I say mother, I'll say bio mom or biological mom. Yeah.
When
I say mom, it's my mom, like my loud, obnoxious, big, huge,
when she brought
noisy mother that passed away.
When she brought you in, they're telling her you were from another from another foster home.
Yes, correct. They were saying that they had to get me out of there. It was a bad situation. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, okay? And I don't think social workers could get away with this today, okay?
I'm sure.
But they lied, okay? It was it was the best thing that ever happened.
Because they
made a lie. I was actually with my biological grandparents, okay? Or grandparent, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And what happened was, it was a bad situation. It was really bad. They were trying to figure out what was going to go on, how they were going to take care of me, et cetera, et cetera. But the crazy part about it was that lie saved my life.
Because they wouldn't have done it.
And I have the social worker's name. Why? Because if you tell somebody
it's from a biological,
they're living with their biological family, they're like, no, I don't know if I want to take this. There's a lot of There's a lot of drama there. I don't know if I want that. But you tell somebody, hey, they're with foster family. Listen, they're not taking good care of them. You got it. So anyway,
wow.
we have all this documentation. So I go, I find my biological.
That just says a lot about your parents, though, as like how good-hearted they are. But yeah, okay.
Well, yeah. So
if the social workers thought they would be like, nope, never mind.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I was grew up in a very dysfunctional but very loving home.
Right,
I mean,
right.
That's the best I could say. Dysfunctional but loving, right?
Same.
So, and listen, I lived in the burbs. I had a great, a great upbringing, whatever. Anyway, good schools, the whole deal. But but I easily could have been a statistic. Yeah. I could have been, you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, this whole thing, I recorded like hours and hours of interviews with people and different social workers and places and that I went and everything like that. I had it all together. And then I just decided, I'm like, this is like, I got to get out of this thing. It's just,
were you going to do like an adoption type?
Yeah. It was going to be called like Adopted or something like that. And I was going to tell the story. Well, there's, here's the deal. The origins of the story are fucking bonkers. Like, I'm talking like I don't even want to talk about it. Like it was absolutely nutty. The origins of my like just birth and people, just like the story from any perspective. I'm not even saying that selfishly because it's me. I'm saying like, it was just odd to have this like, to have this like, anyway, long story short, it didn't happen. But when I think of that, I think, the social workers, ironically enough, they approached my mom about adopting the third child. There was 3 of us, right? Yeah. My biological mom was really old when she had me, almost 40 years old or something like that, which now is like whatever.
So she had like your youngest?
No, I was the oldest.
Oh.
So I was born when she was like 38 or 39, and then she had 3 kids, boom, boom, boom.
Like
and
by
then
50?
And then never had kids again.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, that makes sense.
And one day I'll tell you a story. Anyway, the day I met her was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That included a social worker. Yeah. So I
like a supervised visit.
So there was a private investigator that was involved, and the private investigator. Now I didn't hire the private investigator. That was my brother. That's how he found me.
Wow.
And so, yes.
Oh my God. I love yes, you need to make another. I actually have a really amazing best friend. Her name is Shata. And she was adopted, but was in the foster care system for a long time. And like, you guys need to connect because she has some, I mean, you guys could like, seriously, being adopted changed her entire life. She did meet her parents later in life. And I don't know, it's incredible. It's amazing that you have to work through probably a lot of different feelings about being adopted.
Well, when I eventually met my biological mother, I realized, I was like, holy shit, I dodged a fucking bullet. Like the big guy upstairs was like looking out for me. Like, no, it was crazy. Yes. And here's
and you understood.
I totally understood.
Do you harbor feelings against her?
No,
about, like,
not at all. Yeah. She just couldn't take care of us, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, some people
you're glad she did like the unselfish.
But I couldn't find her. There was always addresses, couldn't find her. Finally, actually, ended up doing some research, Spokio, like background check stuff. Found this address. I'm looking at it. It's a huge building right above the border where I was like living, like an hour or something away.
Oh my gosh.
Go out. I drive to this building. It's a huge like state-run facility. Okay. But it's like a nurse. It's like a nurse. No, it's like a nursing home.
She's that old.
Yeah,
it's a manor.
Well, it was like a social home, nursing home, whatever it was, right?
Like an old.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was a weird thing. They got rooms in there. I don't know, but it was a state-run facility, right? I go in there. There's about 4, I guess, like a few hundred people live there, and the place has like literally 180 rooms.
Yeah.
So it's a big place, right? I go in. There's a social worker that works in the building, kind of like what you did, right?
Yeah.
So I go in. I talk to the social worker. I tried to call her. She didn't return my calls. I go in. I'm like, can I talk to Kimberly? She goes, yes. Let me get Kimberly. Kimberly comes out. She's like, hey, can I help you? I'm like, hey, I tell her the story. I'm like, look, I think maybe my biological mom might be living here. I was adopted. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. She starts talking to me. She's like, hey, before I give you any other information, can you just tell me who this woman is? I give her her name. Okay. Mind you, this place has 185 beds.
Yeah.
Okay. I give her her name. I'm in a lobby. I give her her name. She goes, what? She turns her head and she goes, and my biological mother's name was Irma.
Right there.
Was Irma. She was right there.
Irma
she was right there. She goes, Irma. She walks over to me. She's 4'10". Mm-hmm. She walks over to me and she goes, I want to introduce you to my friend named Everett. I said, oh my God. I said, okay. I didn't want this to happen. I'm like, I even
You're
told her,
like-
I said, no. I
Wait.
said, don't do this. Don't do this. She goes,
We
"Just
have to
be
talk
quiet.
about this. Yeah.
She goes, come over. And she walks up, she goes, like, dentures. She's like, Everett?
Aw.
She goes, Everett? I'm like, yeah, Everett. And she goes, she's 76 or 78 years old. She turns, she goes, I had a baby once named Everett.
Oh,
And I was like,
that's me.
I'm that baby.
Yeah.
And it was like her face just dropped, turned red, like her heart, you could tell her heart started pounding.
Like,
it was a crazy situation.
I can't even imagine.
It was nuts.
I can't imagine that.
It was crazy. But anyway, that's my story on the social work thing goes a long way too, again, because my sister and obviously, but we actually had a really good social worker, like, that was in my corner when I was going through the custody battle stuff. And, it was really a social worker that helped save, my daughter's life, because I got full custody and then she was trying to get the custody back. And I had a lawyer who, her sister was a social worker and knew the case. She said, I know this case. She's like, there is no way. And we had information that I would not have had otherwise. And we brought it to the judge, and the judge actually said, no, we've got information. And then
they were like, were they a state worker, a state?
Yeah, they were state. It was state.
She did like a great investigation, which
oh my gosh,
I will say it
was crazy
back then.
Well, this was let's see, Gabby's
90s.
No, because Gabby, no, I'm talking about Gabby. I'm talking about
Gabby. So 2000.
Yeah, it was like 07. Yeah, 07ish.
So she's exactly the same age as Matt Bryson.
Yeah.
He was 02. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
this has been really good. And here's what I've learned about this, by the way. Most of the time, like, the juices don't really start flowing. Like, I think this is why Joe Rogan does like 3 hours, because I think the juices don't really start flowing. I have like a million
stories.
Did you get to them?
No. Oh my God, I have like 2 of them.
Holy moly. No, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. I want to hear these. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, do we want funny or sad?
No, give me a funny one, because I'm in a good mood.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, I worked with truancy a lot. Okay. And kids that didn't want to go to school. This really isn't that. Like, hey,
Jane, you're going to have to be less detailed on your stories.
I'm going to be fast.
But get to the good stuff.
The kid,
like, get to
every
the meat,
day,
and
the
then
principal would have to pull him out of the, out of the car. And he would whoop that principal's ass every day.
The kid would whoop the principal's ass?
Yes, he was a sweet kid. It was just a thing. It was like,
what do you mean he'd whoop his ass?
I mean, like
he'd kick his ass, like he'd walk out in school. How old was this kid?
He would, third grade, second or third.
Okay.
He would like.
Oh, he's a second grader. Okay.
Pull him out of the car.
He's a kid.
And then go put him in a classroom that was empty with himself.
Can you speak into the microphone?
A classroom that was empty with himself only.
Yeah.
And just like sacrifice himself for an ass whooping.
From a second grader, though.
Yeah.
Jamie asked us, one of our friends, Jamie asked us if I could,
where are you seeing that?
how many, no, not now.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he asked me, he's like, hey, how many like third graders do you think like it would take to like bring you down? Like, or like 5-year-olds. And we were like, he's like, I think of the endless, I think an endless amount. Like, you couldn't have enough 5-year-olds like kick your ass. Like, you wouldn't. You just like start throwing them. They're not going to get close to you. They'd have to pull together.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Okay.
Over here.
This one, but these are not funny stories.
Oh no.
No.
All right, let's do the crazy stories. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, really, the rest of them are not crazy. Let me see.
This is not how this is supposed to go, by the way.
Yeah, well, okay.
It's supposed to be from like recall and then naturally in a conversation. But that's okay.
Really
no, you wrote them down, so
I really
you might as well.
Amazing outcome stories, things that just like I was telling you about with when like there was so much sexual abuse happening, like just being talked about in the cases I was working with. Like I said, 1 out of 3 or 4 times. So I'm talking about every day, 2 or 3 or maybe more times that I met with a student in crisis. They were telling me about a sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
That they had never gotten help. So the fact that it came down to, creating the team and getting trained. I mean, I was in a place I had no training. It was the Twilight Zone. I had this amazing, sweet boy that one of my very first cases when I moved to the smaller town and was working with a little guy, and he was a second grader, and his teacher had been there for, I mean, forever. Like Patrick, I think, had her in second grade. I don't even know. I mean, that's how, and I didn't know Patrick, by the way, yet, but this teacher sends me a referral and says, like, he's going to be in jail. Like, this kid's a liar. He's like basically a loser. He's a loser.
Yeah.
Like, telling me he's worthless. He lies. He's a horrible, horrible child. So I talked to him, and then I call the parents, and he was really sweet, but I find out his story is that he watched his little sister, no, older sister, I can't remember, but they're very close in age, like Irish twins. Watch her die in the back seat of the car right next to him.
Oh my God.
Suffocated. Like, had a reaction to a medicine. And I won't go into like the details of how that all happened. Because it's tragic, so tragic. And she had been sick for a while, but to be labeled already like a jailbird because he was going through so much PTSD, like, and that's the thing. And I'm not upset with the teacher. She didn't have a clue about what trauma can do to a child.
Isn't that amazing? Like they went through a situation, like, okay, you're judging somebody that you have no idea what they've been through. I cannot imagine. And then you're saying this kid's going to end up in jail. But the reality is this kid like went through such a traumatic experience. Yeah. Like this is the reason why. Like I'm not justifying the fact that like, if you grow up and you've got the tools necessary, but like
this baby's second grade years old and he's telling lies. Okay.
Is that Tyreek?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's Tyreek.
Like, yeah. So,
and now he's a wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins.
Yep, that's who he
and
is.
Super Bowl champion.
And but like his parents were just so sweet, and they were devastated, and they wanted the relationship to be amazing. Like they wanted to work it out, and he really did come out of it. Like he just needed help. Like he. I mean, basically, like his mom had to pull over, and like there was just like it was horrible.
What about this right here?
Okay, so I had a case where I had a high schooler that kept telling me that his parents were high on meth all the time, and they were dealing meth, and I mean, just a lot of like constant. I called the sheriff's department numerous times to there's like that side, but this is most of the
go ahead.
But yeah,
you just keep talking. You're doing a good job.
The sheriff's department numerous times, and they would go to the house, they would like look through the house, whatever, and he kept coming back and saying like, I've told you these things, I don't know why no one's helping, I don't know why the police aren't getting a warrant, like why are they not helping? And so I can't, I'm not the police. We were having meetings where I was talking to the DA and the police department and different places and talking about cases that were like very important that needed to be identified in our community. And I was asking them, and then, so they would say like, well, let's pull the trash, because that's perfectly legal. You can pull people's trash.
Okay. Did they find the meth?
No.
Because they smoked it all.
No.
They smoked all the meth.
But they didn't.
You smoked meth, right? That's how you do it.
And this is definitely out in the boonies. Like he lived in the boonies.
So what happened?
So I tell him, because he keeps saying, what am I gonna do? Like my brother, we're all like worried. Like I'm worried it's gonna be bad. And I said the only thing, and that I had to do this for an abuse case too, but the only thing I can tell you is if you have a phone and your parents are crashed out, like if it's a crashed phase where you won't get in trouble or hurt, and where they keep, because he was telling me where they keep the meth. So I was like, if you know where they keep the meth, they're crashed out, they're not going to catch you. Take a picture of it.
Take a picture of the meth.
Like describe it, give your address, send it to your best friend, because he lived out of town. So I was like, you're literally going to have to be creative. And like we had to be creative. I mean, we had to make a plan, like a safety plan. Be creative, send it to your best friend, tell your best friend to please take it to the police station, to the sheriff's department.
The picture.
That's what happened.
Okay. And so they did that.
And they did that.
Okay.
I was in the middle of, we don't even want to talk about bowling league. If anyone knows me, that I'm a horrible bowler, but I was in the middle of bowling league, like a couple nights after we made this plan, and I get a call from one of the sheriffs at the sheriff's department. He was like, I need you to describe the pipe that the student described to you. And so I told him, like, I mean, like I could tell you right now what it looked like.
It's
and
a
he
meth
goes,
pipe.
okay, that's it. No, but the colors, because
Right.
it was in the picture. That's a thing. So I was like, whatever you take in the picture, like tell me what's in there. And when they called me, they were like, okay, you just described what we just had someone bring a picture to our office. You just described it. We're going in. Like, we're going in.
So it took all of that to go in,
we're
and
talking about a month of reporting.
and they rescued the kids.
They took them out. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
All of them. There was
that's a
ones.
good success story, because most of these really sucked,
but
by
it
the
took
way.
a long freaking
the system sucks. I mean, here's the thing. I think if we have stronger communities in general, like
just know,
like the neighbors, right? Like
that's not gonna happen.
Other people that are involved that like, okay, we'll step up and say something and report things and whatever, like, and make bigger deals about things. I think that's the answer to like most of this.
But like, I think that but also, I mean, we just don't have the social service help. We don't have social workers. Like, there's not a social worker in the Rockwell schools, or I would be there. Like, there might be one in maybe the high school.
So they have counselors.
They have counselors. Social work's different. That's the thing about social work. It's like I was pulling kids out of their houses. Like, someone would say, like a principal would call me and say, this is like the 10th day that like Susan hasn't been at school. And so I would go and literally like knock on the door. Like, there was one where she was like, had a hair straightener in her hand, like as a weapon. And I'm like, come on, dude, like, I'll go buy you McDonald's, just get in the car. And that's what got her in the car. Wow. Like, just counselors and school counselors do amazing things. And like the scheduling and the testing, like, no, thank you. But like, I'll go talk to a girl with a hair straightener for a weapon.
Yeah.
But speaking of weapons, I do have a great weapon story.
Yeah. This
is amazing. Okay. This is mind blowing.
All right. This is the finale.
Okay. But okay.
Okay.
The inner city Topeka, we would they actually ended up making their own program, but we still ran the groups. So we had went over to them. I know I have to make this short. So we're just talking about why are you suspended from school? What got you in this program? And this most amazingly resourceful but angry human girl was like, oh, I was so mad at this bitch. Like, I just put 4 I'm going to give people ideas to hurt people, but I put like 4 pool balls in a sock in a large.
Oh my God.
And I whooped her ass. Like, what?
Like billiard balls?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Have you ever heard of anyone whooping someone's ass with billiard balls? Never.
Holy crap. That's the kind of shit that like
whip out a
people
sock.
Make up as like, hey, let's come up with the fucking craziest way
listen, that's so violent, but that's so creative.
Wow. That is creative.
I mean, you hear about guns and stuff in school, but you don't think about people bringing pool balls. That's terrible and crazy.
Wow. Was the girl okay? The other girl?
I honestly
think you could just go like this. Maybe I don't know. Probably not.
It got intervened quickly, but honestly, I didn't know a ton of, because like we were just thrown into like helping this program with groups, so we really didn't know their cases, which is kind of crazy. But we just went and ran the groups. Like we just ran the therapeutic groups. We didn't we didn't know I didn't know she got put in there because she whooped someone's ass with pool balls. I was like trying not to react to that, but there's so many reactions I could think of for that.
Wow.
Like, I'm impressed and I'm actually terrified. And yeah. So.
Well, this has been very interesting and insightful. And we didn't really dive in a lot to your personal experience, but that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, you've helped a lot of people, and that goes a long way. Mm-hmm. So
I do miss it. I miss one day soon. I have Kellen going back to kindergarten next year. So the opportunities are out there and they're in
right, but not here in Rockwell. You have to go to the hood, apparently.
I mean,
you got to go to the hood.
Rockwell,
maybe
we can find the hood somewhere in Rockwell. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So thank you. A couple of quick things. Thank you, Jane, for being here.
Oh,
what's that? Yeah, we've got TikTok had like
TikTok's telling you to take a break.
I don't know. We've had hundreds of people come through.
Really? Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
TikTok.
That's
It's
awesome.
crazy.
I can't tell because it's so small.
Yeah, well, you see it says join all these people.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's been nuts. I mean, it's nonstop.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you, TikTok Live. It's first time I have TikTok Live. TikTok approved my live. I didn't even really request it. They just said, hey, congratulations.
That's so cool.
So that's really cool. Secondly, okay, got an email from Tommy Mello this week. He's coming on. It's not going to be till like October. I have HVAC Nate coming on the 15th, and I have a bunch of other people that you're going to be kind of get back to the industry stuff, but really excited, really happy. Jane, thank you so much for coming on.
If you ever need me back, look at the rest of the list I have.
You went through a good amount of these, though.
Well, just a couple, actually. I kind of went through this one's a big one, but like 3 victims with the same perp. It was a crazy thing. But
oh my gosh.
There's a lot that anyway, it took a lot because like the police and the SRS was not putting that together. So I was like, hey.
You solved a case?
I did.
I was saying goodbye. You actually solved a case? Why didn't you start with that?
I don't, because you wanted a
You
funny
literally
story.
solved a rape case?
I did. A triple rape case. And he went to prison for a long time.
How did you solve the rape case?
Okay, so I worked with all 3 girls. And I already had a relationship.
Okay.
One of the girls had shown up at school. How it started was one girl showed up at school and said, I think told a teacher she thinks she was pregnant, and she was very low functioning, disability IQ.
Right.
And so they refer, they're like, oh God,
so they refer you to,
they're like, go get Jane. So I said, I'm asking her like, well, what causes pregnancy? Like, so she can understand these things. And she tells me she was at her house party, and she basically was like forced upstairs. The rest is history. But unsupervised house party. When mom got home, she told mom, I think they had already maybe reported to police. Anyway, she ultimately was called a liar. Mom said she was lying. I mean, mom didn't want to get in trouble. There was a lot of things happening in this situation that people were covering their asses about. That was the one I was telling you about that actually was put in the cop car. So, and I found all this out from the actual police.
Right.
They told me.
Right.
And then they also said, because I said, well, her IQ is like a 5-year-old. She was 13. And they said, we don't know how, we're not trained. We're not trained to deal with disabilities.
Okay. So you have this one rape victim.
That's one. Okay. But that's why the point is like, there's no training. Okay. Then the second case, within like a couple days, she tells me, that she's in this relationship and this guy forced her to do stuff. I find out it's the same guy. And she is very low functioning and low IQ, and was underage. So I had to report it. And then the third case was, a girl that it was like all of these 3 cases. It was, it's the same situation, but she was actually like medically, had medical issues, and she was telling me about trauma with this guy. So I I turned all of it into the police and SRS. But that night I was like, what? Like, are they not putting this all together? It's the same guy. These one girl, 2 of the girls were in middle school. This guy was over 18. So 2 of them were under 13. And then one was 14 or 15. I don't know. And so I called the police department, and talked to like a super sweet, friendly police officer. And she was like, yeah, like we fucked that up, So
you had the name of the guy?
Yes.
Oh, they knew the guy.
Oh God. Yeah.
Okay. So
yes. So I get a call from the sheriff's department later that was like, I need you to write up a report and give it to the DA. Because like,
and they put it together and they caught the guy and they arrested him. And
yeah.
Wow.
But that's what changed. That's when we created the like an advocacy team, and that's how I got trained to do forensic interviewing, because I was like, this is one case of 3 victims, but there was a lot of victims from the same perp in that town.
Jane crime solver. That's crazy. And I don't mean to make light of it because it's a terrible situation, but that's amazing that the cops.
I'm going to tell you right now, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Like I'm not saying that they're like, but they have so much going on that they're not trained to
Forget the training. That's just
Right.
obvious. You
But when you
interviewed
have
a
a
girl.
5-year-old mentality, I was like, she told you this, this, and this. And the police officer was like, yes, but it didn't make sense.
No,
and so I'm
see,
telling
this
her.
ticks me off. That's not training. I
Yeah.
don't view that as
No, I'm
training.
saying they're not
That's probably
trained,
just
right.
being sheerly
Yeah.
this, you know what?
But
So
they're
much
not-
shit happens here. Like we're just,
Yeah.
we're
I
overloaded.
don't know how you don't know that she had a disability. That's the thing. But she was
But
like, we
forget
didn't
the fact
know.
that she had a disability. That's irrelevant.
Right. But her story didn't connect. That's what that was the thing. The first victim was like, she was saying the police officer was like, her story does not connect. It doesn't, like, there's not a point A, B, C. It's like a point A to B.
Oh, because
to C
I see. Because
and I said that's
she was mentally challenged, so
right.
it's tough for them to
And
understand
so
what
she
she was
thinks
saying.
she's making shit up.
That
and
makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's why I'm saying, like, they weren't. Yes, it just they needed to be trained in disability. I mean, it's just the systems is a shit show. So, and I could go on and on.
Well, okay, so
But
that was actually the finale.
Yes.
That was good. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jane, the crime stopper, crime solver, Detective Jane. Appreciate you guys, seriously.
Yes, thank you.
Love you all, and thank you, TikTok Live, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Do you have anything you want to say?
No.
Okay.
Is
bye.
it still live? Okay, bye.
It's still live. Bye.